lot of people who procrastinate get stuck because they don't actually know the difference between worry and planning. But there is a subtle but distinct difference between the two. So let me show you by first of all looking at what worrying is. So let's say you have to choose between three courses of action, A, B, and C. If you're a rational person, you'll do what most rational people do in this situation. You add up the pros and cons of each, and hopefully you'll make a choice. But you'll notice that a lot of the time they're kind of evenly matched, and that's what makes it hard to make the choice. If one of them outweighed the others by a great deal, the choice would be simple and you wouldn't be spending your time worrying. But what's actually happening for most people that stops them from planning and turns planning into worry is this. They go through this process with option A, then they flip over to B, do the same thing, flip over to C. Then they go back to B because they kind of feel like, oh, there's one of these advantages sort of outweighs some of the advantages of C. Or they look at that and then go back to A and say, yeah, I didn't like the disadvantages of B. I want to go back and take another look at A. But then it's like, oh no, back to C, and then back to B, and back to A, and back to C, and back to B, and back to C, and back to A. You get the idea. So you're going round and round in circles, not reaching a conclusion. Now, planning looks much the same, at least at the beginning. So same thing. We add up the pros and cons, but then there's a very important step that happens in planning that doesn't happen in worry. So planning goes like this at the start. Look at A, look at B, look at C. But then the person who's planning makes a choice. They take a decision on one or other of these options and they just move forward. In other words, they take action. And this is the only difference between worry and planning, because you see, once you take action, you don't have to worry about the pros and cons. You've already chosen, in this instance, C, and you are stuck with whatever advantages and disadvantages C had, including, and this is what often holds people back, the disadvantages that you couldn't have foreseen. Also, on the positive side, because we want to be optimistic sometimes, some advantages that perhaps you didn't detect. Okay? Now, there's a different thing that happens once you've made the choice, and that is regret. We'll talk about that in another video.